in the world you are listening from today. I've got a special guest here, Gerry Schroeder. He's with Slavic Worship. Gerry, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself?
Well, my wife and I both graduated from Liberty University a little over 40 years ago and worked in churches for 25 years in the area of worship and other church leadership, and had a little taste of a lot of different areas. For a while, we were children's directors and senior high youth pastors. And so we ran, in church work, you do a lot of different things, but our main focus was in the area of worship. And went overseas on a mission trip with our church to one of our partner churches in Russia, and just felt the call of God to go over there and start doing basically what had been doing in churches in the United States over in Russia. And so we've been there for over 20 years working with team members there. And it's been an exciting time. God has been walking and through us and giving us directions on what we need to do in ministry. And it's been an exciting time.
Awesome. So let's first ask a fun question. What kind of music do you listen to on a regular basis?
Oh, yeah. For a musician, that's not so much of a fun question. It's I work with music pretty much 3 or 4 days a week, and so in an aspect, it becomes part of a job. But for me personally, I like to listen to music that is done well, um, because I get distracted when there's music that's poorly done. I get distracted to the mistakes or
I've heard that about musicians.
yeah. So, but it goes the gamut. I like to listen to classical music. I like to listen to Black gospel music. I like to listen to contemporary music. Um, and it can be all kinds of genres. I like to listen to Lee Ritenour and Dave Grusin, some jazz players, keyboard player, and electric guitar or acoustic and electric guitar player. I like listen to Tommy Walker, writes a lot of great songs with Christian lyrics, and just any musicians, any artists that do the songs well, that have a big win for me is when they take great music and they put it to great theology, and that's what I really like to listen to. So.
Awesome. So let's start with what. Tell me about your testimony. How you came to know Christ.
Well, I had the opportunity to grow up in a Christian home. Both my parents are believers, and we went to church ever since I can remember. And I heard the gospel. And one night, I just realized that I needed to trust Christ. And they gave us these little prayer hands in our Sunday school classes, and they were glow in the dark prayer hands. And I looked over and I saw that. And I said, oh, I should be praying to Jesus and trust him. And that got more solidified as I began to understand the impact and the depth of the gospel. But it was really, I was about 10 years old, I trusted Christ. And that's how it was.
Awesome. When did it become your own faith as you got older?
Well, probably actually in middle school, I really just, I'm a kind of guy that if you believe it, you just need to start acting on it. And so step by step, I would begin to do that. We went to training about how to share your faith with others. And so I would do that in 7th and 8th grade. I would start doing that with some of my friends at school. And I would say, yeah, that it was my faith then, but it continues to be my faith, even during the pandemic time. You're sitting and you begin to understand, okay, I don't have any control over any of this stuff. God, I just have to trust you. And so it's a growing process that every period of your life, you're growing and it's becoming more of your faith and becomes deeper.
Yeah, no, I get that. Different seasons of a believer's life. I totally get that. So what led you in the direction of missions? I mean, I get a hint of that when you were in the 7th grade and sharing Christ with your classmates. There's a little hint of missions there, but what kind of started leading you in that direction? What was the process?
Well, when I was 16, I was in a youth group that traveled to Mexico. And that was my first time to be over to a different country. And again, it was what I'd sensed when I was in Russia. These people are passionate people, they're encouraged, but in the area where we were, there was no opportunity to hear the gospel of Jesus, to have those same opportunities that I had growing up in a Christian home. And something just resonated in me that, hey, I don't just need to stay in the United States. I need to be sharing in wherever God wants me to go. So, yeah, I would say when I was 16, that's when I began to consider being a missionary wherever God wanted me to go.
Awesome. So when did your vision of serving in Russia, when did that actually start happening? How did Slavic worship come about, and what is it?
Well, those are two different questions for me. When I went to Russia in 2001 on my first time there, I went kicking and screaming. I didn't want to go, but being on staff, every two staff members at the church I was in, they budgeted money for us to go to different partner churches. I said, send me to some of our Latin countries because I've studied Spanish for 3 years. At least I'd have a clue. No, we need you to go to Russia because they're doing this music thing and they want you to come speak at this music deal. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go there and I'm like, I have no clue. So I was totally dependent on other people, which, in my, late 30s, early 40s, whatever, do the math. All of a sudden you're like, okay, you're being led around in this place because you have no clue what to say, Russian sounded kind of like German a little bit to me. So I knew one phrase in German from a week of German, in school. So, it was really weird. But again, what I saw in Mexico is what I really sensed. They don't have opportunities to develop their skills and to use the resources that God has given them. And granted, they don't have all the same resources in some of the places we went, but they could have done it so much better. In just 1 week, I was able to help them with their sound. I was able to help the youth choir use their sound better. I was able to help them understand how to play the synthesizer that our church had given them, because, it's not the same as playing the piano. So I trained the young person to do that. And then the adult choir wanted to be a part of the songs that we were singing with the youth choir. And we translated a couple songs so they could do something new and fresh. And we did this all in a week, which is really rather unbelievable. We came and we're singing these songs at the end, and people are taking a video, and we get back and to the States, and we show a little of this video in our church. And, the idea was, well, we're going to sing it in Russian too, because we learned in Russian the band's playing and everybody in the church is going to sing it, right? Because we're going to put, we taught them the phrase. Yeah. Everyone was just blown away by what they saw happening. And even Russian church leaders that saw the video said, Gerry, they came to Dallas a couple months after that and said, Gerry, what you did in that church in a week is what thousands of churches need all over Russia. And, I still get choked up even now thinking about it. And we went back a few months later, and we did some more work. And I had this big list of everything we wanted to accomplish. This is before we had like iPhones and things like that on a legal pad. It came down to one thing, was like, who am I going to train to take on this leadership of developing the churches? And there was no answer for that. And when I shared that with my family, they said, well, that's got to be us. So that's when we decided we were going to go. But for me, the emotional, passionate, spiritual connection happened basically overnight, just because I saw the need was so great. But the process of deciding whether or not that was going to be us, we walked through some more logistical steps. So the second part of your question is, how did Slavic worship come about? Yeah. And so That's all I knew was like, there's a big, huge need and they want us to come. And so we didn't know what that was going to that kind of ministry to help. There was no model for us to follow. So we identified that we wanted to find uh, three, 2 to 3 catalyst churches
Mhm.
that would be like a model of development that could spread to all these other churches, because there's no way to go to all these thousands of churches that they were talking about. So we went to Moscow. That was a central location. We started working, learning the language, and so we began to observe lots of different churches, because while you're learning language, you don't want to get sidetracked with being totally involved in ministry. But I would play and I would help them create some of their music a little bit better. But we just saw the big, huge need of providing music resources. No music publishing there in the Christian world at all. Um, uh, Poor translations. People would translate songs.
Mm.
Every church would do their own translation, and sometimes,
Oh no.
most of the times, the translations would be bad because they didn't know English really well, or they would just compromise and just do it really quick and get it done. And then they would listen to recordings of the songs and then learn the chords wrong. And then they would play the songs wrong. And I, whoa, wait, that song is really goes like this. Oh, no, 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 Gerry, we have it. We have it. I'm like, no, no, you don't. And so we began to see that need. And then the training of what is good biblical theological understanding of what worship should be. It's not about music preferences. It's not about what you see on YouTube from big church concerts in the United States. I would see worship teams argue and fight about how they were supposed to play songs on the stage during their rehearsal, but it's a rented facility because they don't own the church.
Yeah,
They don't have a church building. And so the church members are coming in while they're on the stage and they're fighting and arguing.
man.
And then they walk off the stage and they go pray for God to bless them. And all the people saw them fighting and arguing and walk back in, and they play all the notes right and they sing the songs right. But the sound's like way too loud. So no one engages because they can't hear it. And they walk off the stage and they high five each other. They think they did a great job. And that's an extreme example. It wasn't always that way, but there were way too many of those. And
Hmm.
working with youth music as I was growing up, I just said, this is what I was sensing working with young people. We just have to walk through this. And it was mostly young people, and how to use sound equipment correctly. And so we just started to sing. We needed help them with their skills to do them better, because contemporary Christian music, traditional Russian Christian music, they're excellent at that. They don't need help with that. They do excellent with that. But if they're going to try and start doing something new and start to even write their own new songs, they needed some help with that and developing how to do that well. So creating resources was important, in training them how to create their own resources and get that out. And then give the biblical theology behind what a worship team is. It's really a little mini picture of the entire church. Ephesians chapter 4, Ephesians chapter 2 being God's workmanship, and then working together and using each other's gifts and building each other up. That's the worship team. That's how a church worship team becomes successful. And then understanding that we're trying to create an environment where people understand and they experience God's truth and love, and using those parameters to help them understand this is what we're trying to accomplish in a church service. And it's not just something that happens, you turn on when you walk in. It's something that's part of your whole life. It's a part of your whole preparation. And so we started developing training methods to do that. We started creating the resources, and it's expanded into that now. And those are our main focuses right now.
Awesome. So, just as a reminder to everyone out there, you can interrupt us and ask us questions. You can comment on whatever we talk about. We love talking with you. This is not just a two-way conversation. And on that note, Gerry, we have Gordon Ellison on the chat, and he basically says, "Good morning from Nashville, Music City. Thank you for your work in ministry. Talk about worship wars and how to create worship set for multi-generational settings. Is this an issue in Europe as well?"
Well, well, yeah, it's an issue in any church, in any culture. And what we talk about is, well, the basic biblical theology of what worship is in general. But then beyond that, every church, which I think I just described, right, Nikki? Was
Kind of
that
described
sort
a
of, yeah,
little bit. Yeah, you kind of
yeah,
half answered his question.
yeah. So that's the basic foundation. But every church has its own uniquenesses, its own little mini culture, if you will. Like we know music styles in Africa are going to be different than they are in Latin America or in Canada. They're just going to be different because their cultures are different. Well, each church has its own little mini culture among itself. And so, even in the United States, I think
Mhm.
they've identified 9 different culture areas, and probably even more now. Okay, probably many, many, many. But even in the same country and even the same city, you're going to have people with different opinions and different preferences. So we encourage church leaders to look at their own church culture. And remember, I said we're creating an environment where people can understand and experience God's truth and love. That's the biblical foundational pattern that we're going with. And we could get into all the passages to talk about that. But um, what style of music, what style of church order, liturgical or a contemporary order, or what's going to connect with those people that you're trying to engage and create this environment for? And we call that your own church's unique worship DNA,
Hmm.
because everybody's going to be different. And every area is different. Now, you can't be all things to all people. That's not what we're talking about right here. But you have to have this basic foundation. This is where we are theologically. This is where we are stylistically. This works best with our people. What are we going to do? And that's not just about the music styles. It's about the whole feel of the service. What are you going to do? You're going to be super personal and relational, where you're talking to people personally from the stage? Is it a smaller church that you can do that, or in a bigger church it's going to be a little bit more structured? Are you going to have lots of lights? Are you not going to have lights? You're going to use hymn books? Are you going to use video projection? What do you have? So all of these things are part of it, and you have to define what is, we call it a primary win. How do you know when you're successful with your service? And we have a whole thing that we walk through to help you kind of answer your own question about that. But the worship wars, it's not about this is the right one and this is the wrong style, or I don't like this, or whatever. As the church leadership comes together and says, this is what connects best with our people in this culture, this is what we're going to do. And Andre did an excellent job of that. He was asked to lead worship at a pastors forum. 500 pastors came to this event in Moscow. And it's a little bit more traditional. And Andre plays with guitar and he does some things that can be a little bit edgy for them. So he's going to lead worship at this pastors event. And most of them are like 45 and up, and he's in his 30s. And so he comes in there, he leads worship, and he follows this pattern. What songs are going to connect with these guys? So he's picking songs, that his dad would sing. He's picking songs, some of the older hymns, and then we're doing a couple songs that are a little bit. He did "Amazing Grace" with a nice new feel to it,
Mm.
a great arrangement of it that uses the Chris Tomlin chorus in
Mm.
the middle. But he did his own really nice arrangement of that, and he sang some songs like that. But he did songs that connected with them, and they did. And so the leader of the event came up to me afterwards. He said, "Wow, I was worried a little bit about this, but he did so well in really engaging everybody." And one thing led to another. I explained this theology that about creating environment that connects. He goes, "You need to come to my church in Siberia and teach this." So we took our team and did a little Soli Deo Gloria event in his church in Siberia. And now they're one of our key churches they're going to do their 4th Fine Arts Day Camp, children's worship camp with us. Yeah, and so they're going to do their 4th Fine Arts Day Camp, children's work. My computer just dropped out. I didn't know if it dropped out for you.
Oh, no, it didn't drop out. You're good.
Okay, so that's how we focus on what we should do and how to do it well and how to serve the body. And yeah, there's going to be some places where you have to say, we're not going to do this, even though somebody really, really strongly wants to do that. Well, I'm sure there's a church nearby, especially in the United States, where you can find something that's a good match for what you want. It's a little harder in Russia because there might be only one Protestant church in a town. So it's a little more tricky, but still, that's the way we approach it. And that's how we help the church leaders walk through that issue.
That's a sense of humility too, where you're asking yourselves what, instead of your own musical preferences, what connects best with the audience. I think that is just really important takeaway from that, at least for me. Thank you, Gordon. So basically, it's been, needless to say, a little difficult in the last year and a half for ministry. So, and most people know what's the news and everything, but when you, where have you seen God move even during this time? Because you're expanding. So God is definitely at move in your organization in spite of what's going on right now.
Well, right. And during the pandemic, we were in the States for almost 2 years. And in the fall of 2021, I was able to go back and actually be in Russia for a couple months. And we did our conference then. And we had, on our team of over 40 people, we had 9 different churches represented on our team working together to do the conference. And the participants at the conference saw that we worked together really, really well, totally opposite of the extreme example I gave before. And even when some technical things went not so right at the very beginning, everybody was calm and it wasn't the end of the world and no one was yelling at each other, and everybody, we just were the body of Christ. And they saw that and they said, we want that in all of it. So that connection and that unity among our team was just fantastic. And we said, we're coming out of COVID now. Everything's back on track. This is really good right here. We've been involved here for 20 years. It's taken us 20 years to build that relationship because denominational lines were really strong to be able to do that. And we said, how are we going to get to other regions? And we did a trip way out to Far East by the Sea of Japan to help with a church, 9-hour flight from Moscow due east and coming back. So we did that. And we said, well, how are we going to make that expand? And then everybody started moving and expanding. And so now our team is in 5 different countries.
Wow.
Key team members are in 5 different countries. Part of that is because over 1,200 companies pulled out of Russia in the last year and a half. And some of our team members had jobs with those companies. And so they either had to say, I'm going to get a different job, which are hard to find now, or they had to transfer to the other locations. Some of our team members said, you know what? And our team members aren't just Russian. They come from all different sides. And some of them felt like, hey, it's probably better if I get out right now and go to a different country. We had one team member who had a family member in Ukraine that said, I think we need to get out of here. And so she said, well, we're going to come help you. So they went to a city in Western Asia with 1.2 million people. And basically they did it overnight, basically with their go bags and just the clothes on their backs. And so they went there, which was a fortunate thing because that family's house in a neighborhood got bombed the next day.
Oof.
And so they went there and they basically just had whatever they had. And and we've had team members who had family members that have been killed. We've had other team members with family members that have had issues and scary circumstances just in trying to get to safe places. And so, yeah, our team is scattered in multiple locations. However, during the pandemic, we kept meeting with our team members, even though it was just from the United States
Yeah.
to Russia, 2 to 3 times a week, and continuing to work. And our conference has now been online a couple times. And this year we're going to do a hybrid version of in-person and peer-to-peer locations around the world at different
Awesome.
places. We've been doing translation work for some Russian-speaking churches in Kyrgyzstan, and lots of locations. We're in, yeah, like I said, we're in five different countries. There's more information on our WorldVenture website about exactly where. And so it's been a tough time, and yet and our emotions have gone up and down. There are times I go out in the backyard and I'm trying to dig a ditch and taking out all my anger on the ditch, because I had to take it out on something.
Yes.
So, and some of the sadness, and yet what something I said on a video about 5 years ago was, we're not American, we're not Russian, we're citizens of heaven first
Amen.
and foremost, and no matter what other country you want to pop in there, we are children of God, part of his family, part of his kingdom first off. And we see that in our team, in the relationships towards each other. We have songwriters who are Russian and Ukrainian and Uzbekistani, and we are working together to write songs of hope,
Awesome.
to bring out the light of life. And one of our recent updates, we put out a little video clip of being in a recording session. We're actually translating into English as well, and so we were recording the English lyrics for that and working on songs. And so our team is continuing to work and continuing to minister. And they're like, the gal who went to Western Asia, she goes, I never thought I'd be a missionary for Russia worship. Well, now Slavic worship. We're
Awesome.
in so many different places. And she goes, but
Yeah.
here I am. I'm ministering to all these people. And there's only 4 Protestant churches that they've been able to find in the entire city of 1.2 million people.
Wow.
And they are doing ministry. There's 150,000 Russian-speaking refugees in this city.
Wow.
1,500 Ukrainian orphans in this city.
Oh, wow.
And then they were devastated with massive earthquakes a few months ago. And so now they're reaching out and helping people that are evacuees from that. And she was telling me some of the families, the mothers and the kids were coming, and some of the people there that have to be cautious about their religious affiliations, they were there and listening to the gospel. But when the music started, when they started singing, something resonated in their soul that just had this flashback connection to home and to their heart. And they started to cry, and they were like, well, but we don't even know these words really, and so that was just another example of the tremendous responsibility that we have when we are leading a church service or leading an event that has music in it. When we're trying to create this environment, whether it's a church service or at a hotel where people are evacuees, wherever we are, we have a responsibility to make sure that what we are communicating in those lyrics is God's truth.
Yes. Amen to that.
And so, because this is an opportunity for people to hear God's truth when they might normally never hear it because of their current religious connections and where they are. And so it was just a reminder to other team members, because we talked to this team member with, one of our team members in Moscow, one of our team members in Serbia, some of our team members in the States, in California, Virginia, and it was just everybody. Yeah, that's right. So we are mentoring and developing our team, and they are taking these stories and connecting them to literally our key catalyst churches, which we now have we had 5. Now we're expanding to even more, but tens of thousands of churches are influenced by what this leadership team does and teaches now.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Um, so if you guys are curious, we put the links, ministry links in the chat for both Gerry and for both Slavic Worship as well. Tell me, what projects are you and your team working on right now? Also, just on the last thing you talked about with what the video clip you talked about, WorldVenture did put that video clip up on our Instagram and on our Facebook. So if you want to check that out, just go back a couple days and you'll see the post and you can hear a little bit of a sneak preview. If you also want to be on his newsletter, make sure that you make sure you private message us your email, and I'll be happy to forward that on to Gerry. So Gerry, tell me what you're working on right now besides that, or
Well,
more details.
yeah, we're finishing up some song projects. That's one of them that we're recording, and we're excited about it because written by multiple languages. Our goal is to record it in Russian and Ukrainian and in English. So we've been working on the Russian and the English, and we're going to finish it up. And one of our team members who had to leave Belarus and is in Poland now has set up and had to leave his sound studio behind. Is rebuilding a sound studio in Poland, and he's got Ukrainian refugees there that are ready to work with us and record that. So we're getting ready to have that one finished up. Hopefully, being international like this, it takes a little while to coordinate everybody's schedule. So hopefully by the middle of summer, we'll have something for people to listen to. We're also creating children's worship songs. We go and do Fine Arts Day Camp, and Andre will lead songs, and people from other churches here, and they go like, we want to sing those songs. And we're going like, okay, yeah, here's the music. Well, no, we need the soundtracks, and so we're working on that right now. We're about to finish up one. It's in the final approval stages, and we're hoping to have 10 songs by the end of the summer that are not related to necessarily the children's musical, but they're just good, solid theological songs that are designed for kids to enjoy. And so we're working on that. Fine Arts Day Camp. Olga, one of our team members for over 15 years, is coordinating Fine Arts Day Camp in 4 different locations this summer, and she'll be flying to a couple of them. One of them is going to be in Western Asia, so we may send her there. I don't know for sure yet, but then there's some others in lots of different locations. So we're working on Fine Arts Day Camp, helping her to coordinate that and providing the resources for that. Some of you may have seen videos from last year's Fine Arts Day Camp. And how that works is we don't necessarily have all of our team there. In that particular case, they would take pictures and shoot videos and upload them to the cloud. And then in the United States, myself and some of our other team members would take those pictures. With the time difference, everybody was sleeping over there, but it was just morning for us. So we would edit those videos together and upload them back to the cloud, and they would download them and show them the next day. So we were supporting them on the tech side from here to help them make that happen. And so we're working on that. Andre is our main worship guy and our main leader, especially while I'm not able to get in and out of Russia. So he's our main guy there, and he's been speaking at multiple conferences, 5 conferences since the 1st of January. People are asking him to come and speak. One pastor came to him and said, we've got an event coming up in June. We are gathering pastors from multiple denominations together to just unite in prayer. And we need someone who's going to connect with pastors from all these different denominations. And you're the only guy we know that can do that, because everybody else is affiliated with a denomination. But you will sing songs that resonate with everybody. So that was like, wow. So that's a great honor for him to be able to do that. And we are working on our conference that's going to be coming up in the fall. That will be a hybrid version. Like I said, a lot of people in different locations sharing over video conferencing, video webinars, and relating so face to face in there. So we are working on that. Also helping a church organize their conference over in Vladivostok and far eastern Russia, and then communicating with a couple other locations in New Siberia city, Novosibirsk, and location in Kyrgyzstan that we're looking at for the fall to maybe do something there. And then obviously Olga, we mentioned she's in Serbia right now and functioning out of there. And so we've got some things going on there. Interesting situations with her because she's like, well, wait a minute, I have to pull all these different cultures together because the church service is in English and Serbian and in Russian.
Oh, wow.
And we have people from multiple locations. So she's like, okay, how can I do Fine Arts Day Camp, a multilingual version of Fine Arts Day Camp? And she's come up with a brilliant idea how to do that. So we're working through that. And it's just a lot of unique ministry opportunities. But from a year and a half ago, when I was there in the fall of 2021, being based in one location, now we're in all these multiple locations. And our team is spread out, yet we're together. But everything, the opportunities are expanding, plus the needs are expanding, and the opportunities for people to be involved and help are expanding as well.
Awesome. So explain the Fine Arts Day Camp. What does that entail?
Well, Fine Arts Day Camp is a week of children's creativity, because we have to be careful how we say these words. Mm-hmm. And they come in. And we work with the full-blown version of it is when we work with actors ahead of time, children actors, and they're preparing to perform a musical. And so when the kids come in the week of the Fine Arts Day Camp itself, they come in and they rotate to 5 or 6 different locations within the facility to have lessons on Bible, to have lessons on music, to have lessons on choreography, to have lessons on acting, and creating stage sets, designs, little designs that they put together. And when possible, we do an ESL class because people would have wanted to learn English in the past. So our teams that have come from the United States participate with that as well. And so the kids are in groups based on their ages, and they have usually high schoolers, high school students that go around as the camp counselor, the group counselor, and they go. And so they have these little groups that travel around. Sometimes there's 3 of the groups within one class with one instructor. And so they rotate around and they learn the song, as everything they work on relates to the song. The Bible lesson is based around the theme of one of the songs, and they teach it. So as they sing the song, they have the background behind it. And so the whole process walks through the week. And at the end of the week, they get on the stage and they perform the songs. You know, the kids that come that are in the choir are just in the background. They might do choreography, but they sit there. Then we have the children that do the acting. And we provide high-level professional audio for it with like the headset microphones, and the challenge of that. And running audio, as a sound engineer, I know running audio for a children's musical is the hardest audio you could ever do, because you're working with kids and they might mess up and grab the wrong microphone, and you got to follow that. So it takes a tremendous skill level of technical and support team to pull this off well. But now the church in Siberia I talked about earlier, the secular university there wants to send some of their students to Fine Arts Day Camp at that church as an internship so they can learn how to do it well.
Awesome.
So it's an outreach to the kids themselves. It's an outreach to the parents, but it's also an opportunity for church members and Christians to learn how to use their skills and abilities for God. And the first year we did it there, they had 14 people volunteer to be involved in the children's ministry full time after that. So that's Fine Arts Day Camp in the 10-minute version.
That's awesome. So we're going to move to a little more serious subject. maybe a little more sensitive subject here. So can you explain the hit? I know that Marla's gone through some difficulty with her kidney, and you just posted the good news. And recently, if I gathered the information right, you
Mhm.
recently both endured a kidney transplant. So tell me a little bit about that history and how that's going.
The kidney transplant is coming up on June
Oh, it's
8th,
coming up. Okay, I thought it was
but
after.
we've had so many tests, it seems like we've already done it. But no, they are very, very thorough about that to make sure that there's no bad side effects that would be detrimental to the donor, which is me. And so we've known that there's a hereditary kidney disease within Marla's family that we've known about for many years, called polycystic kidneys. And
Mm,
so eventually over time, you lose the function of your kidneys.
mm,
And so uh, we have been monitoring that since her first pregnancy. We have 3 children, and during the first pregnancy, they monitor all that, look very closely, and yes, she did have that. So 13 years ago, her kidney functions got to the point where she either had to go on dialysis or have a kidney transplant.
mm,
So that was in 2008, and in the summer of 2009, we had a church member who volunteered to be a donor, and she's had that kidney. She had that kidney for 13 years. Well, the normal lifespan of a non-familial donor is about 10 years, and she made it for 13 years.
mm.
So this past fall, in August, September, that kidney function got to a point where she needed to go on dialysis and potentially look for a new donor. So she started dialysis in September, and 13 years ago, I was a potential donor as well, but this other lady matched better. So we started the process of me being a donor, and it turns out I'm a better match now than I was then.
Wow, how is
And
that possible?
we don't know, maybe prayer. Um,
There you go.
but it is very complicated because she they don't only have to match Marla's immune system, but they have to match the immune system of this other lady who was
Wow.
the donor. So we're matching 2 immune systems now, because you have to take some immune suppressant drugs so that your body doesn't attack the foreign object.
Mm,
So there has to be that, and so there has to be a lot of matches and similarities between the systems, the immune system in particular. So um, we did a lot of tests for that. We started that in January to start the testing on me, and continue to start doing testing on Marla. Actually started in December, and they did a ton of tests. And just so people know, I mean, if you're a donor, usually the facility pays for all the medical fees.
nice.
So none of my fees had to be paid by insurance or anything. It's paid by the facility. So just an FYI for anybody who's thinking about being a donor. One of our team members on our advisory board, and has gone to Russia with us many, many times, just received a kidney in December himself, and their donor. It's not something that happens so uniquely anymore. It becomes pretty normal now. In fact, his surgeon, he was his 2000th transplant that he personally had done. So it's kind of a normal thing. Well, not normal, but I guess it's not rare. It
Mm,
happens. And so we're geared up to do that on June 8th is when it's going to happen. The uniqueness about it for us, though, is usually when one of us is having surgery or something done and medically, the other one takes care of them, you know. But now we have to bring in other people to take care of us, both of us, because I can't drive for 2 weeks at all. So, and neither can she. But her recovery will be longer than mine. But we need someone to take care of us and drive us to appointments and go get the groceries and all that kind of stuff.
mm.
So I don't
Nice.
know. There's a lot more information about all this stuff, but yeah, it's coming up on June 8th. and we have people coming in to take care of us, family and friends that are flying in, and so there we
Yeah.
go.
Gordon basically said he'll be praying for that, him and Rita. So,
Yeah,
so
pray that everything goes well during the surgery, and that the recovery goes well, and that her her medications will be minimal for this.
amen. I'll definitely be praying for that as well. So you mentioned in an email that Slavic Worship is needing 20,000 to continue ministry. Can you share a bit about that?
All right. Yeah, our budget is expanded to match the expanded opportunities that we have. When our team was just in Moscow, mostly, it was more easy to be there. But now we have more church leaders, like our team member in Western Asia, and she was leading worship in her church, and she was part of our team and participated. But now she is her own leader for us in Western Asia, and she has financial needs. She wasn't even able to take her iPad with her that she uses to lead worship when she left. It was so fast, and so she has more needs with that. She has needs. An apartment flat when they first got there over a year ago was about $300 to $400 a month. Well, because of everyone coming in now, it's $2,000 a month. So there's needs there that they are trying to meet, and just multiply that with the various locations that we have. And so our budget has expanded to match the opportunities that we have. And in some ways, the things that we can choose to do are limited by the funding that we have. So it's kind of a balance. Like, okay, we want to do this ministry. Okay, God, we hope you get this. And yet we have a financial team that's like, okay, we have to be realistic here. And okay, let's put this budget in place and these things. And so if we had that $20,000, it would allow us to be a little more free to say, okay, we're going to focus on this. We know we have this. We know we have this. Rather than, okay, we are not sure if Andre is going to be able to fly to that conference in Novosibirsk and do that event, or be able to travel to that pastor's prayer night and lead worship there, because those are expenses, and expenses have shot up, and the dollar goes up and down, and the expenses actually where they are have shot up. We were looking at bringing Andre to meet with Olga in Serbia, and the price of those plane tickets have gone up 15 times what they were before. And we want to send Olga back in to do Fine Arts Day Camp, and the price of those plane tickets have shot way up. And because she's not there and she's got to get in there, and so it's just for her to fly in there with her family so she can stay for the month that she needs to be there is $6,000.
Ouch.
For the whole family, and it used to be, for the whole family of four, it would have been like $1,200, but everything's just shot way up. So our expenses have gone up. And then we have the projects that we do alongside with that, like the song recording projects, and, the equipment for Fine Arts Day Camp, those specific hard costs that we run into project by project. But just our team of 8 song translators that we try to help them a little bit financially. They're working on translating. We do, on average per year, 1 song translation a week. So
wow.
between 50 to 60 songs a year that are officially approved by the publisher that owns them. It's not just, let's just do the translation and we send it out there. No, we go through the process, say this is an official legal translation. In fact, if you go to CCLI and search for Russia Worship, our translations are on CCLI.
Nice. That is nice.
So
go ahead.
Yeah. So our ministries are expanding, and so we have an expanding need to fund the ministries too.
So if you feel led to give a one-time gift or partner regularly with Slavic Worship, we have the link. It's in the chat. Just click on it. You can read more and feel free to give. It is tax deductible, and I would recommend setting up an account so you can, for tax reasons. But I'd recommend partnering with this. He's doing a lot of good work. So before we head off into our topics, how can our audience be praying for you overall for everything between health and between your ministry leaders and your different opportunities, your different projects? What are specifics?
Well, it's a prayer that our team prays, and I pray daily. Be the number one is that God would lead us and give us wisdom as we are able to lead others. Then, so there's not a lot of precedent for some of the issues we face right now, and so being able to dig into God's word and understand what He wants us to do, and to be able to apply that with grace and truth and love is something we need wisdom on. So leading our teams, that God will lead us as we lead others. That would be our first request. Then in Luke 10, Jesus was always talking about, hey, we need to pray the Lord of the harvest for more workers. And as our team has gone to new locations now, they are looking for more workers to develop their own teams in those locations. So we were praying for that. And God is beginning to answer that in some unique ways that we are seeing. But that is an ongoing prayer that we have. So people that are actually on the ground there, or even people that are helping us here, we talked about doing things on the cloud and supporting from here, things that are going on overseas. And so maybe there's somebody here that wants to help with something in the cloud that we're doing. So there might be people here that can help. And then people that can make a sacrifice financially to help support us. We are expanding that too, because it can't just be the same people that understand our ministry. We are praying for more people to be involved in that. So basically those three areas for our ministry, but then be praying for Marla and me with all the logistics over the next 2.5 weeks now, 3.5 weeks, so 3.5 weeks. Yeah. To 3 weeks from yesterday, I think it is actually. Anyway, whenever that is for the transplant, be praying for that. So, and our families and the recovery. So those are our 4 major requests that we have.
Awesome. So if someone in the chat could write out a prayer, we'll probably even close with that prayer. If you write something out to pray for those requests. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We've got a few more minutes. So let's go on to talk about what's been going on at WorldVenture lately. So we had the Bennett's in Rwanda. They led a ministry leaders training program. And if any of you want to see that, go back a couple days and you'll see that post on our social media. But for a question for you, what are some major obstacles to reaching people the gospel in the various countries your ministry is active in?
I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. Can you repeat the last part?
Yeah. So what are the major obstacles in thinking about training leaders, and how, in some countries, they just don't have an understanding of the gospel. What are the major obstacles to reaching people with the gospel in the various countries your ministry is active in?
Well, sometimes it's the foundational spiritual level or understanding of the country. We have to flip our minds to understand that in spite of everything going on, America is still basically a Christian country, well, at least founded on Christian principles. And some of these countries you go to, they're just not at that mindset. It's just totally, we overuse this phrase, but it's totally foreign. It's just not on their radar of understanding at all. So you're starting from a lot lower level of understanding, of biblical understanding, than you might be with someone who's born in the United States or a traditionally Christian country. So some of these countries where we are now, that's where our team is. And so that's a challenge to understand where they are. And the biblical example would be Paul went in and he saw, hey, I understand your culture. I see you have all these idols for gods, and you have an idol for an unknown God, just to make sure you don't miss one. And I'm going to tell you about that unknown God that you don't know about yet. And so he related to their culture and brought them to the gospel. So being able to understand where people are and being able to take them on a journey to understand the gospel is the biggest challenge, I feel.
Awesome. Yeah. So, why is mentoring leaders so important in the countries in which Slavic worship is active?
Well, I think you can see it right now. I'm not there, and they're still functioning.
Which is a sign of a good ministry.
Well, right, and we're not called just to evangelism. We're called to disciple, and
Mm-hmm.
part of discipling is mentoring. And Paul rarely went out by himself. And when he did go out from Ephesus by himself, they weren't happy. The elders were not happy that he was leaving by himself. And so it's always like the navigators used to say, follow me as I follow Christ. And then they would also say, never do ministry alone. And that's just part of the process. That's the best way to learn ministry, is by doing it with someone who's helping you. And as our team is wrestling through some of the challenges they face now, Marla and I are able to say, hey, okay, I understand what you're going through, because we went through that 25 years ago or 30 years ago at this ministry situation. And here's how we handled it. And this is the principle. Now, it's not exactly the same, but here's the principle about how you do it. And just to help them recognize what is happening around them, to take that and remember that in critical moments, and then also remember that as they share with other leaders. Fine Art State Camp's a perfect example. I didn't want to do it. I said, no, we have way too many things to do. Marla kept saying, we need to do it, we need to do it, we need to do it. So we brought Olga to the United States to observe Fine Art State Camp. So Marla went and helped her, worked with her. So she's mentoring Olga. And then Liberty University did some training in Moscow, and we brought some people from Siberia, and they came and they saw it, and they went back. And then they started saying, hey, we want to do Fine Art State Camp. And so they came and observed Olga doing it. And then they went back and they did it. And now they started training a young person in their church to do it. So there's 4 or 5 levels of mentoring that have happened in that case. And now when one of the leaders in that church has is in a season of life where they can't run it, this new girl is running it. So it doesn't just fall apart and not happen. And now when our team is in multiple places, they're learning how to do that. So men, are we going to fish or teach people how to fish? Well, the best way to teach people how to fish is to fish with them. So you're not just walking away from evangelism, but you're doing both.
Yeah, exactly. So we are about to wrap up. I encourage you to take a look at our social media platforms and see the various posts we've had, from an update on Jacob, who had escaped from Afghanistan, and the various other updates, including new people who are going to new fields. So thank you for joining us, everyone. Gerry, stay on. And if you have any questions, now's the chance. While we're live, if you want, put it in the chat. If you don't, or if you think of something later, you can go ahead and put it in the chat later, and I can forward your question and your contact information to Gerry to answer directly. So Gerry, thank you for joining us today. We'll definitely
you're welcome
for you. Have a good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us.